Hi there, and welcome to another edition of Vista Voices, where Vista answers your burning operations questions. My name is Mary Ellen Murrah. I am not joined today by anyone, which is a little bit of a departure from our usual, but I had such a timely topic to talk about that I didn't want to wait any longer. I've been getting so many comments, questions, and interesting discussion lately with my clients about quiet quitting. Quiet quitting. Unless you're living under a rock somewhere, I'm sure you have heard this term. It feels like it's taken over the news. It's taken over so many conversations I've had. And because I have a particular passion for leadership and HR, it has sparked such interesting debate, commentary, thoughts that I wanted to share a few things that I've been talking about with the rest of you. So if you haven't heard this term, and I've seen a lot of different definitions of it. I've seen it explained a lot of different ways, but the one that I think most identify with is this idea of not going outside the boundary of job expectations, of really sticking to the letter of the law when it comes to what you're doing for your job. So that means if you're a 9 to 5 employee, you come in at exactly 9 o'clock, you leave at exactly 5 o'clock. You're not raising your hand for extra assignments or sort of stretch things to do within your job. You're really kind of coming in and sticking to that exactly what the understanding of that job is and not doing a single thing above and beyond that. The interesting thing is I was looking at Forbes did on their YouTube channel a little segment about quiet quitting, which I thought was fascinating because the two examples they used for quiet quitting were an employee not turning on their camera when they come to a Zoom meeting and an employee who is not answering texts, phone calls, emails, any sort of communication after hours. Which were fascinating examples to me because I can make some arguments for those two examples that don't necessarily fall into the quiet quitting category. You know, for the Zoom camera on, unless you've got a policy at your firm and it's been well communicated to your team that your camera must be on during meetings, and you've communicated that, and you've got an employee who is consistently not doing that, I'm not sure that one falls into the category. There are so many reasons why I might not want to turn my camera on during a Zoom meeting. Maybe I'm just not feeling well that day and I'm not looking my best. I didn't feel like doing my hair or putting on my makeup, and I feel a little self-conscious about how I look that day. So I'd rather not turn my camera on, but I still want to participate in that meeting. Maybe I've got crazy dogs in the background, which I actually do right now. And I don't want them to be on camera. I might not be comfortable with the rest of my team seeing that. There's just a lot of different reasons why that might not be the case, that's indicative of quiet quitting. So I would say if you've got a team member who isn't turning their Zoom camera on, maybe have a conversation with them first before you really lump it into that category and make the assumption that they're not engaged. Same thing with working after hours or not responding to things after hours. I think that's such murky territory. Number one, what kind of team member are we talking about? Are we talking about an hourly team member who's already put in their full-time work for the day, who maybe wants to be respectful of not going into that overtime category? Is it somebody who's expected to work after hours? And if that's the case, has that been communicated to them? How are you communicating with them? Are you texting them? And that's maybe a boundary that they've set for themselves. So I think that really comes down to communication. And honestly, this whole idea of quiet quitting, in my mind, really comes down to a leadership issue. And I think it's about having cogent, professional, and kind conversations with your team members. Have you given your team the real true expectations for their job? And if not, are you just making an assumption that they're quiet quitting, or do they maybe not understand what's expected of them? If you're making an assumption that somebody is not giving their all because they're not turning their camera on, I really hate to see you put that on somebody and expect the worst of somebody like that. Now, of course, there are team members. Not every team member belongs on your bus, and there are people who sometimes become disengaged. My best advice for those team members who you've noticed have become disengaged, if you had somebody who in the past was just a stellar star performer and really was raising their hands for additional assignments and was really going above and beyond and was really the kind of team member that you want to have, look at what's happened with that team member. Has there been something that changed at the firm where they overlooked for a promotion? Did they have a review recently? Have they never had a review? Is there a situation where maybe this person is feeling frustrated or undervalued because you as a leader maybe haven't given them the feedback that they deserve? Or is there a case where you just really haven't given someone a job description, a scorecard, where they understand what the parameters of this job are and what the expectations are? And they're thinking they're killing it and they're doing an amazing job and they feel like they're going above and beyond. But you've got this idea in your head of what this position should look like that you haven't properly communicated to that team member. So I think this idea of quiet quitting oftentimes really comes down to what you've set up in your firm as a leader. And if you've got those team members that were formerly performing well and they're not, my best advice is sit down with them, have an honest, candid conversation with them. What changed? Is there something that you as a leader could have done to keep them engaged? Is there something going on in their personal life that may have changed? Are they just totally burned out because they've got so much on their plate and they have been that star performer for so long? Regardless of what it is, I think a conversation is in order, and an assumption that we have a workforce that's just all quitting at their desk without telling us, I think that becomes a bit of a lazy thing where we're not necessarily looking at ourselves as leaders or looking at what we've put into place, and we're slapping a label on something that maybe doesn't deserve that label. And if it does deserve that label, if you've got someone who's truly quietly quit and you've had those conversations with them and you feel like you've done all you can do as a leader, well, there is this thing that's called not so quiet termination, and it might be time for that. But you need to take a look at what's going on at your firm to see if that's appropriate for you. For more on leadership topics and case management and intake, please sign up for our Vista University and Vista Law Firm Leadership Summit this November 15th through 18th. It is going to be amazing, I promise you. And if you have operations questions that you'd like our Vista consultants to answer, drop them in the comments, send us an email. We'd love to answer your questions on a future edition of Vista Voices. Thank you.